Hi guys, so Ben Habib from the Brexit Party or Reform UK or whatever the hell they call themselves at the moment is urging Boris Johnson to stop negotiating. The problem with that is that Boris Johnson is not negotiating with the European Union at the moment. The negotiations finished last year on the trade deal, and the negotiations on the withdrawal agreement finished more than a year ago. So what the hell is he talking about when he's asking Boris Johnson to stop negotiating? Well, let's hear what he had to say.
Over the future of Northern Ireland. I mean, if one thing ought to be clear to the Prime Minister and to the British people by now, is that we will never gain any kind of concession from Brussels that would suit the United Kingdom.
What are you talking? Okay, Ben doesn't seem to understand what the Northern Ireland Protocol is. The Northern Ireland Protocol is an agreement between the UK and the EU for the UK to carry out checks on behalf of the EU in Northern Ireland on goods moving from Great Britain into Northern Ireland. Now, at the moment, the problem is that the UK government have not carried out these checks or have not been preparing the groundwork for these checks. The infrastructure is not fully in place. The systems are not fully in place. That's the bone of contention here.
You know, the whole point about Brexit was to regain our sovereignty, was to be able to determine our own future ourselves.
And you have that, and you're still complaining. Like, my response to Ben would be, so you're not happy with Brexit? Would you prefer to cancel Brexit? No, we don't want to cancel Brexit, but we're not happy with Brexit. Although, is Ben happy with Brexit? All I hear from Ben and from Brexiteers is that they're not happy. They won, and they still haven't gotten over it.
So why is it that we find ourselves now having to go yet again, cap in hand, to Brussels to try to gain control of what is already ours?
But you do control Northern Ireland. The requirement of the protocol is that you carry out checks on goods, not people, goods moving from Great Britain into Northern Ireland. Now, there are no checks taking place between Northern Ireland and Great Britain when it comes to goods. Those goods are flowing freely. The UK government could carry out checks on them, but they decide not to. But under the obligations of the protocol, they have to carry out checks on certain goods moving from Great Britain into Northern Ireland, because there's a risk that those goods would be moving further on into the Republic of Ireland.
Remember, Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom.
Yes, it is. Nobody's disputing that.
It is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
You don't have to repeat it. We understand that. Northern Ireland is still part of the United Kingdom. The European Union have never disputed that. The Republic of Ireland have never disputed that. Who is actually disputing the fact that Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom?
But here we have David Frost still negotiating with Šefčovič in the hope that we might gain some concessions.
It's not a negotiation. What is wrong with Ben and what is wrong with these people? This is not a negotiation. The negotiations are over. What they're doing is they're looking at the protocol and how to implement the protocol. Isn't it interesting? Because if there was negotiations, then Boris Johnson's Brexit deal, Boris Johnson's oven-ready deal, would be thrown in the bin and they would be starting negotiations again. But that's not what's happening. Instead, what's happening is the UK government, and the EU are sitting down and they're trying to use the protocol. They're not throwing away the protocol. That's very important to remember. You know, unionists and people like Ben Habib want to throw the protocol away. Replace it with what? They haven't actually made a suggestion. They haven't provided any alternative to the protocol, but they just want it thrown away. But what's happening is Boris Johnson's government, the EU, are sitting down and they're looking at how they can use the protocol to ease the problems that are the result of Brexit. These are the consequences of Brexit. The protocol is the grease of the wheels of Brexit. If we take away the Greece, the whole thing comes crashing, or come to a grinding halt, I should say.
And Sefcovic's response? Well, both sides have to be reasonable. Both sides have to make concessions.
He hasn't said about, I haven't heard him saying anything about concessions. The protocol needs to be implemented. Both sides have to come together and agree how to implement the protocol. It isn't about concessions. They seem to think this is some sort of negotiation. No, the negotiations are over. We have the ground rules. Now, how do we use the ground rules to help businesses on both sides of the Irish Sea?
What he means by that, because we've heard this before, what he means by that is the United Kingdom must bend over.
The United Kingdom needs to bend over. And what? And take it, you know where. This is the type of rhetoric that is extremely damaging and extremely dangerous to be using around Northern Ireland. He can use this type of rhetoric if he wants in Kent or in Yorkshire or other parts of the UK, but don't use this type of rhetoric, Ben, in Northern Ireland, because there are certain individuals there who will use this as a call to arms, and some of them are already doing that.
The EU is not going to relent on Northern Ireland. The only way...
Relent on Northern Ireland? What the hell is he talking about here? Relent on Northern Ireland? The EU agreed with Boris Johnson and his government that they would be responsible for checks carried out on goods moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. What is so difficult to understand about that? The Brexiteers are trying to paint a picture of the EU is trying to take control of Northern Ireland. The EU is trying to dictate terms in Northern Ireland. This was an agreement between Boris Johnson's government and the European Union. If you have any problems with this, you need to be complaining to Boris Johnson's government, because the EU have said, this is what you agreed to. This is what you guys wanted. Remember, we didn't vote for Brexit. We didn't want Brexit. You guys wanted it. This is the result of the negotiations.
The way to sort it out is by unilateral action, exercising our rights as an independent sovereign state.
Unilateral action. We've seen the result of unilateral action. How can you say that you agree with negotiations, but now you're saying to stop them, but you say we need to come together, we need to put pressure on the European Union need to compromise, and then you're talking about unilateral action?
To take control of what is already ours. Stop the negotiating, start leading, Boris Johnson.
Stop the negotiations. Once again, there are no negotiations. I don't know how much more I can repeat this. The negotiations are over, Ben. You got your Brexit. You're not happy with your Brexit, and you're complaining about it. I had said this on numerous occasions. The Brexiteers didn't know what they were voting for, and now that they've received what they didn't know what they were voting for, they're complaining about it. You know, there is a very simple solution to all of this. It would be to rejoin the single market and the customs union. Northern Ireland would return to the status it was before, and everything would be hunky-dory. But unfortunately, the Brexiteers don't want this, because it wouldn't be Brexit. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?